The Indian rupee has failed to maintain its initial gains against the dollar today after hitting a one-month highs at 59.95. The closing on your screens is marginally lower at 60.13. The broad dollar sell-off and the gains in other Asian currencies has been supportive for the rupee, but it has been the decline in the Indian equity markets and of course some dollar buying that has been putting pressure on the rupee. Let's get on board then. Wwatch, who's author and CEO at BSPL India. Also joining us is Manoj Rane, who's MD Head, Fixed Income and Treasury India, BNP Paribas. Manoj, hi, welcome. Let's start with you first. And what's your sense that you have been making of the rupee moves? 60 is a level that seems difficult to breach as of now.
Yeah, there is underlying strength, and there is a belief, whether founded or unfounded in the market, that RBI will support the US dollar under 60. So you've seen, several attempts at 60 and then it bounces back. One reason or another is enough for it. You've seen a little bit of selling on the debt FII side in the last few days, which could have resulted in a slight weakness in the currency. Having said that, I think it's a currency level which is like itching to appreciate, if I can use the term. And, I think all bets are out that there will be a fairly decisive majority for the NDA, which will again may lead to a fairly short-term kind of sharp appreciation again if that plays out. And if it doesn't, then you might see a significant part of the gains being surrendered. So I think right now it's fairly sentiment-driven and rightfully or wrongly, reactive quite strongly to polls and opinions of election forecasters.
About the Indian market, Manoj, I just want to, give out numbers the way the other Asian currencies or the other currencies really are gaining. The dollar index, of course, is trading at a 6-month lows, but take a look at the Korean won. That one is at the 6-year highs. A GBP is at a 5-year highs. You have a Canadian dollar which is trading at a 1-month highs. Something like a peso also is trading at a 4-month highs. So would you say that in the international arena, the rupee hasn't been able to gain up because of the domestic cues? Or would you say that rupee has gained up enough and that's the reason it's not reacting to this?
I think, in this calendar year, rupee was possibly the first of the currencies off the block, actually, Indonesian rupiah and the rupee. In fact, markets were quite puzzled for about 2 or 3 months when the Korean won, actually, which has possibly among the strongest fundamentals, hadn't really appreciated as much as, the relatively weaker structural currencies such as the Indian rupee and Indonesian rupiah had. But possibly that was the result of the, hammering that these currencies took last year. So, there was obviously going to be a bounce back. Also, structurally, fundamentals for the currency, particularly relating to the current account, had improved dramatically as far as India is concerned. So you did see a fair amount of appreciation in the first 2 or 3 months. Thereafter, it has sustained itself. I think that itself is no mean achievement, considering the fact that, from the lows of 68, which we saw last year, the currency is almost 12 to 13% stronger. And if you look at what it was about a year ago, it's now possibly only 10% weaker. Unlike, if you remember, we were talking about a 35% weakness, over the last 2 quarters of last year. Actually, the third quarter of calendar quarter of last year. So I think to that extent, there is generally, I agree with you that there has been a reasonable amount of strength in currencies, but that's affected by, that's a result of various factors. Like for instance, the Korean fundamentals are quite strong, which have been supportive of the currency. Last week we had very positive data in the US, so you saw the US dollar appreciate substantially, and that's the reason why the index did well. So, I think it's a motley crew of factors, if I may say so, and, Indian rupee will continue to be, highly dictated by how the current account behaves, and to that extent we should not belittle the role that the gold import constraints have played in making sure that the currency has remained relatively stable. I think also stable and also substantially increased reserves, so which is indicative of the fact that RBI has probably used this opportunity to beef up the reserves as well.
Vijay, what is your sense now on the charts though? Because while the rupee is trading at a 1-month highs, how are you looking at the 60 as a pivot point that it seems to be making?
Manisha, I maintain my view that the rupee is likely to be range-bound at least till a day before the election result announcement, that is the 15th of May. And I reiterate my view, which I put forth yesterday, that if the dollar comes down in the currency derivative segment prompt month future series, to the 60 or sub 60 levels marginally, I would be a keen buyer on declines, because I anticipate the USD INR to head towards the 60.90, if not 61.20, before the 15th of May. So, although the rupee is likely to be range bound in the future segment between that 1 rupee 20 naya paisa range, I think the dollar is likely to witness buying support on dips.
Manoj, how would you look at, as you pointed out, CAD would be an important number to watch out for. Next week it also is about the trade data, the IIP numbers, WPI as well. All of that also falls before the election. So in that sense, would you say that the next week perhaps is going to be more choppy?
I would think so, and I don't think it's just May 16th. It's May 12th really, because you'll start having the exit poll results coming out, and I do think markets will react to exit polls, because exit polls by and large tend to be slightly more accurate than prior to election forecasts. So I would think you're in for a fairly volatile time between the 12th and the 16th. However, after that I'm slightly more bearish on INR, because I do think that the euphoria or, the very positive sentiment which a decisive majority, particularly NDA led, because, markets right now are in the thrall of a Modi-led government. And if actually that plays out, then really speaking on the fundamental side, not much is going to change in the immediate future. You still have a Tata Motors which is at a decade low in terms of their sales. You still have consumer durables numbers ticking lower and lower at every reading. IIP still continues to be a challenge. Inflation continues to be a challenge. El Nino is round the corner, so to say. So I don't see the fundamentals themselves changing dramatically in the short term. So I think markets will indeed need to do a reality check, and that's why I do think that whatever happens in the short term, 60 is possibly the bottom level as far as the USD is concerned, and for the INR possibly the top for the time being.
So one final quick word then, Manoj. What is the best case scenario for the rupee going forward? If we do get a thumping majority, as markets have been perhaps factoring in, what is the best level for the rupee then in coming fortnight perhaps, or a month?
See, a very sharp appreciation in the immediate aftermath, if there is a very strong majority, cannot be ruled out. So you could see as much as a 3 to 4 to 5% even appreciation, and that's what markets are actually predicting informally. But having said that, I think that would be fairly short-lived. I would be surprised if you have a sustained strong currency under 60 for long. I'm just talking here of a fairly short-term technical phenomenon.
All right, so barring a knee-jerk reaction, not much expected in sense of the currency. So it's 2% between that plus or minus that you would be looking at the rupee performing in the next week and perhaps thereon as well. With that, Manoj, we will let you go. Thank you so much for joining us with your sense on the currency and, of course, various developments that the markets are awaiting.